Thank you for joining us on another edition of the Florida Chamber Foundation's Florida Horizon. I'm Tony Carvajal, the Executive Vice President of the Florida Chamber Foundation, and joining me is our trustee and good friend, Chris Hart. He's the CEO of the Florida Court Clerks and Comptrollers. And Chris, thank you so much for continuing this conversation. We've been talking about how important the court clerks are to Florida's processes, and you ended the last episode with a stat that really struck me. 11% of GDP is somehow tied to government processes. Is that what you just said?
It absolutely is. So we did verify that, so you know, through Adrian Johnston, the economist over at the Department of Economic Opportunity. It's been an interesting trend, though. I will say this. I think the Florida Chamber Foundation, the good work that you've done through the 6 pillars, and I know with the work you're doing with 2030, you're making real progress, because as I looked at the number, it started at 12%. It's sort of bounced around there, and it's been coming down. So for scorecard purposes, I'd say that that's in the right direction. It's starting to turn a little bit more green.
So most of us want GDP to grow, but probably government is one of those things that we want more efficiency, and you all are a big part of that process. I mean, rule of law and efficiency and effectiveness is really what your organization and the court clerks and comptrollers are all about. Tell me a little bit more about how they work in terms of, let's say, public documents and official records.
All sorts of public records are held by your court clerks and your comptrollers. They really do serve as the official records keepers, which, when you think about our system of government and checks and balances, you have an elected official there, a constitutional elected official, that is charged with maintaining those records, ensuring that they're accurate, ensuring that they're maintained. We're the Sunshine State. We market that, but it's also one of our I guess, strongest held public policies, and that is that we're the Sunshine State in terms of public information. And so because of all those public records, whether they're held in paper form or electronically, and of course they've been moving to more electronic versions, they ensure that the public trust is held. So they hold those documents, they maintain those documents. But if a request comes in at any time from anyone asking to see those, they of course make those available as quickly as they possibly can. But there are certain times when the legislature, through public policy, has decided that some information should be held private. They also are not always necessarily the first line of defense in ensuring that information is redacted, but oftentimes they're part of that process to ensure that information that is put out in the public realm is redacted appropriately. And we think that that's where they help policymakers with their good public policy.
So, you know, it really sounds like you got the backs of citizens and businesses, everything from deeds and certificates and court filings, or that you all are managing that process and making sure that there's integrity. Is that what I hear?
Our members do, and these elected officials, they take their roles, their responsibilities, their duties, their functions very seriously. One of the areas that they've been focused on that I think is important for businesses especially to know about, and that is where they serve as in a comptroller role. And that is where they're looking at county finances, they are serving as an auditor. They're basically ensuring that when tax dollars are extracted from our citizens and our businesses, that those tax dollars are spent wisely, and that they are spent the way that they were supposed to have been spent when the policy was put in place that led to the budget item.
So you're getting the attention of people here now. You're talking about integrity and making sure that when people are contributing to their government, you know, we call that taxes, that there is security in that process and assuredness that it's going to where it needs to be going.
They do. So they take their fiduciary responsibility very seriously. They're always mindful of any expenditures and what that means to the citizens of the state of Florida, including their own. They've had some of their own budget woes in the past that they are working on today with some of the legislative leaders to ensure that they can continue to provide, as court clerks and comptrollers, those essential governmental services.
You know, and funding is probably an important part of this. You don't want the person who collects these fees and fines to be the one who kind of sets them. So the legislature is an important part of this for you. Is that right?
Absolutely, they're an important part, as they always are. I mean, they are the appropriators, and they set the appropriations, they set fees. Our members' role is to ensure that that everything is carried out exactly as it should be carried out, the way that it was intended to be carried out, and that's what they do day in and day out.
So in our first episode, we talked about them no longer being the best kept secret. You guys are fantastic in terms of making sure that government is running smoothly. In this episode, we talked about efficiency and its importance. Will you come back and talk about the innovation? Because, you know, when I think about court clerks and comptrollers, and particularly your organization, technology and innovation in 2030 is really one of the things that comes to mind. So, got time for one more episode?
Without a doubt. I mean, technology, that's one of my favorite topics.
Chris, I love working with you on so many issues: workforce, economic development, policy. We're going to come back and talk about innovation then. For those of you watching today, thank you so much for joining us on another edition of the Florida Chamber Foundation's Florida Horizon. See you next time when we talk about innovation in Florida 2030 with the court clerks and comptrollers.